everyone, to this Continental Harbor Sports production featuring the San Pedro Sports football program. And of course, if you were on another planet, you might not be aware of the fact that the San Pedro Pirates this year, under the coaching of Mike Walsh, had a perfect 14-0 undefeated season and won the 4A City Championship. And we're here to take a look back at this extraordinary season by the San Pedro Sports football Pirate team. And we've got, of course, several guests for this edition of San Pedro Sports, and they are beginning with the head coach of the San Pedro Pirates. We're so pleased to welcome Mr. Mike Walsh. Of course, we'll be talking to the coach about how he put together a perfect undefeated season. In addition to Mr. Walsh, we're very pleased to welcome the legendary Bill Tiger Reese, of course, the voice of the San Pedro Pirates. We'll be talking to Tiger about what it's like being out there for every single game. In addition to Mike and Tiger, I'm very pleased to welcome one of the assistant coaches. He is the assistant coach for the offensive line and the defensive line, and that, of course, is Mr. Corey Miller. Corey is an integral assistant coach over there at the Pirate football program, and we'll be talking to him about his efforts. On a previous edition of San Pedro Sports, earlier in the season, we featured both the some of the offensive players as well as some of the defensive players. Well, this time around, we're going to feature a player from the special teams, and that is the San Pedro Pirate kicker, Giuseppe Cracchiolo. Giuseppe had quite a few critical kicks during the course of the season, and we'll talk to him about those. And finally, I'm so pleased to welcome back to our Continental Studios once again Mr. Domenic Costa, who is the assistant football coach over there for both the running backs and the defensive backs. But before I do get going, I would like to say congratulations to all of you for posting an outstanding football season and really bringing just an enormous amount of pride to the community of San Pedro. And Coach Mike Walsh, let me begin with yourself. Tell us about this football season. How did you put together a perfect undefeated 14-0 run?
I'd like to start out by saying I wish I could claim that I put it together by myself, but that wouldn't be the truth. At San Pedro, it's like you said, you had assistant coach Costa and assistant coach Miller, and I don't consider any of them assistant coaches. They're all equals with me, and they've made just as equal contributions, and we probably have 5 other assistant coaches that aren't here that made great contributions to the program. I don't know how you put a 14-0 season together. It doesn't happen very often. I had a coach from Colorado State coming in and talking to me today, and he mentioned, Coach, you went 14-0, and I said, it still hasn't sunk in. Do you go 14-0? That's hard to believe.
And you certainly did it. And of course, the relationship that you have, as you just indicated, between your fellow coaches and the players really was probably the key factor for putting together this kind of a run, would you say?
Well, it's a key factor in putting together the kind of run we've had in the last 6 years. I mean, we've been in the finals 4 out of 6 years. We've not only been 14-0, we've been as close as you can be to 14-0, 13-1, and 12-1-1. We're blessed. We're blessed at San Pedro to have these type of gentlemen that are willing to spend their time away from their family, and to have the kind of kids that are willing to spend the time that it takes to be champions.
And of course, Tiger, you being the voice of the Pirates, you're out there for every home game and you make most of the away games. But the crowd at Daniels Field and the field itself is really a part of the puzzle, because those home games are always packed. It's always incredibly loud, and it really just makes for a very intimidating atmosphere for any team to come in and play there.
I don't agree with this intimidating atmosphere, because teams come in from all schools, and they can expect that. They always expect intimidation, so they should just wipe that off the books.
But the fact that the crowd is always there and it's always packed and it's always very loud is a plus for the Pirate football program, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Anytime you pack your stadium and you have enthusiastic fans, it's going to help the home team quite a bit.
Okay, absolutely. And of course, Corey Miller, the football game is played in the trenches, the offensive line and the defensive line. How did you go about getting those kids to play so well all season long on both sides of the ball?
Well, offensively, it was a progressional effort. They just kept improving and improving better and better as each week went along. Defensively, we had a couple returners back that were kind of setting the tone for our defense, and we kind of fed off them
Okay, and of course, Domenic, the running game is so critical. The defensive backs, you had both of you were blessed with outstanding players. But tell us about. Of course, I should before I ask you this question, I should state that your quarterback had a heck of a season. Melvin Yarborough just really outdid himself in his final year over at San Pedro. But the running game is critical in order to facilitate the passing game. We all know. Tell us how you got that running game to really run through so many defenses.
Well, I have to give a little credit too, because I work every day with the man I call him. He's my little professor and reference book, Ernie Martinez. And in terms of dealing with some of the young people that we deal with today, he's just fantastic to work with someone every day who has that much knowledge, because he's coached a lot of years. At San Pedro, we're going to try to have a balance, but we're going to establish the run first. And we're going to share the load in terms of carries on offense, because it's just really hard to believe the conference is so physical, so violent, that I don't know if you can give the ball to one young man 30 carries a game and expect him to last all 14 games. So a young man might say, hey, San Pedro, coach just doesn't give it to one guy. I'm going to go there. I'm going to get 4 or 5 carries. They got a blocking scheme over there. And, hey, then they run that nice play action over there. And, it's a plus. And so a lot of different people get a chance to touch the ball. And defensively, like you said, I just was blessed with some outstanding talent, probably one of the better years in that I've ever coached in terms of talent at that position.
Of course, special teams is a big part of any football program, and Giuseppe, being the kicker, you had quite a few pressure kicks to make this season. How did you go about preparing for the season, and what was it like being out there and really having so many of the players, look at you in certain situations when the pressure's on?
Yeah, but as like a kicker, you're nervous. Every time you go out on the field, you got to make the kick, because if you miss the kick, everyone's going to say, oh, you let the team down, like last year in the finals. This year, the coaches called me up and go, we need a kicker this year, because, last year I couldn't make it. I had a bad, back problem. And Coach Costa and Coach Walsh, you're a kicker. So as first game comes on, I did my first kickoff, and Coach Bishi goes, see, it was easy as that. Second game, I hit a 50-yarder, so, after the game's progressed.
A confidence booster right there.
Oh, yeah. Everyone started looking, the kicker in town, the kicker's in town.
Right.
So I just developed from there, and other coaches practicing with me every day. So I got better as the games go on.
Obviously handled the pressure incredibly well throughout the entire season. What we want to do now, folks, is go to video from a game that we covered here at Continental Harbor Cablevision, and I was talking to Coach Walsh just a moment ago, and there are so many important points throughout the course of this season for the Pirate football team, but we think that this was perhaps one of them, and that, of course, was the stunning come-from-behind victory over the Narbonne Gauchos at Daniels Field. And what we're going to do now is show you some of this video, and as we do, we will talk about it and kind of look back and get the thoughts of the coaches and Tiger and Giuseppe, and see what they have to say about this just incredibly stunning victory. And of course, Coach Walsh, have you ever coached a game where it had a conclusion like that?
It was funny you asked that, but in the last 6 years, we've won so many games at the end of the game. We've won. We counted it up one time. I think in the first couple of years, we had like 6 or 7 games that were won in the last quarter, in the last 6 minutes of the game.
But this ball was snapped with no time on the clock.
It's the only one where it was snapped with no time.
You had to get down to it.
But actually, we beat Banning a few years ago with 30 seconds left on the clock, or 20 seconds left on the clock, and we beat Venice a few years ago. We were down by a couple touchdowns. Westchester last year in the playoffs kicked a field goal against Westchester, or against Washington, when Coach Costa was coaching at Washington with 2 seconds left on the clock, and then there was no time as the field goal went through.
So you've had quite a few exciting finishes.
We prepare for that. It's not. Well, no, it's not an accident. I mean, it's not an accident that you're able to come back. Yet you have to prepare to be able to come back. You're not going to be ahead all the time.
Sure.
So.
But this game in itself it was a critical part of the season for you, was it not?
Yes, it was. And, to say that it was the most dramatic, if it wasn't the most dramatic, it was pretty close. I mean, a couple of those others against Washington and Banning were close time-wise, but it was a very, very exciting game. I've never seen the crowd so excited, except back against